Hello, everyone. A very heartfelt welcome to all of you who have joined us today for this pivotal webinar on transforming testing practices and the power of AI in scriptless test automation. I'm Anisha on behalf of WalkingTree, and we are excited to have you with us as we navigate through the transformative landscape of quality assurance empowered by artificial intelligence. So before we delve into our enriching agenda, I would like to take a moment to introduce WalkingTree Technologies. WalkingTree is at the forefront of driving digital transformation, leveraging product engineering, data analytics, agile, and DevOps-based execution. Our commitment to excellence and innovation over the past 15 years has positioned us as a trusted partner in crafting cutting-edge solutions globally. Our QA capabilities at WalkingTree are very vast, encompassing test automation, wherein we utilize top automation tools and innovative frameworks to enhance testing efficiency and coverage. And our services also include mobile application testing, wherein we ensure optimal customer experience, business value, performance testing as well for high-performing, scalable, and stable applications, and test advisory for strategic insights for improving QA processes. Furthermore, our commitment to quality is demonstrated through our end-to-end quality services across various sectors like fintech, healthcare, and pharma, where we implement best digital transformation practices, thereby accelerating the launch of secure applications and also optimizing customer engagement as well. So before we delve into the details of our agenda, let's take a moment to welcome those who are still joining us today. So for today, we have two speakers with us who are basically luminaries in the realm of test automation and quality assurance. So first up, we have Avinash Prusti, the technical manager on the QA front from WalkingTree Technologies. He has over 16 years of extensive experience in test automation, product management, and quality engineering. He stands out for his adept skills in enhancing customer satisfaction and preventing critical quality issues. His proficiency in optimizing team performance and his deep-rooted expertise in software quality assurance and delivery management has made significant contributions to the industry. Following Abhinash, we hear from James Spent, the Vice President of Solutions Engineering from Virtuoso team. James brings to the table a rich background in AI-powered test automation. Having worked across a diverse range of industries to tailor test automation solutions for browser-based applications, with over 15 years of experience in SaaS organizations, his pivotal role since early 21 from Virtuoso team, he has been in the test automation role since 2021, and he has delivered invaluable insights as well. So for today's webinar, our agenda is not only to enlighten you on the latest trends and advancements in test automation, but also showcase that how WalkingTree, in collaboration with the Virtuoso team, is pioneering in the integration of AI in scriptless test automation to enhance QA processes. And in the conclusion of the webinar, we will definitely reserve some time to address all your questions and your insights. So please feel free to submit any of your queries, insights into the Q&A box during the session, and let's have an enriching and interactive discussion. So without further ado, I would welcome our first speaker, Avinash Prusti. Avinash, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Anisha, for your kind words. A very warm welcome to all the audiences who have joined us to be part of this webinar. Thank you again. Let me share my screen. Okay, so just to brushing up with the agenda, what we are going to cover today. So this is basically for all those who are interested to be a part of this automation journey, right? So how to embark on that journey with the seamless transition from the manual testing aspect, right? And within this tool, we'll be seeing how it's near to zero setup required with minimum configuration. That's like it's eliminating the complexities there, right? The unnecessary complexities. Next, we'll be covering here is how we can increase the test authoring speed, which will enhance the functional UI and regression testing, ensuring a quite bit of test coverage there. Thereon, we'll again proceed to learn how the maximum reusability can be achieved, thereby reducing the maintenance costs. Next, there'll be like how to accelerate execution efficiency by parallel testing, that is like performing cross-browser multiple devices testing seamlessly. Therein next in line is how we'll deal with the test results, which are quite detailed, and there's a lot of visualizations within those. And last but not the least, we'll cover up some real life success stories that you have implemented and streamlined across using this enhanced test practice. Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next one. So we and WalkingTree Technologies, so we have a wide range of QA aspects that are covered here. It's just not functional or manual or a test automation. So there are lots in addition to those things. So I'll just briefly cover each of the aspects that we cover here in the organization that helps succeed in achieving a great customer experiences with the addition of value-added products there. So to start off with, definitely functional testing is a major part of our success. So it's just not about like smoke, sanity, and regression. So we do a lot of thing other than just the basics, whatever we follow in each of the organization. So to add to that, we have a very streamlined white box testing or a black box testing we perform. uh, it's to go along with the sanity, smoke, regression, whatever things are performed on an average organization, but then to exceed to it, like we perform localization, generalization. So there are different aspects of functional testing we cover there. So as part of advisory consulting services, not only we provide time to assess what's going on in the current thing, but also we deep dive like what are the objectives that are required for the customer, what are the structure, what are the areas of concern, and here as a part of consulting services, we dive into various processes, projects, infrastructure, tools to go with, and finally we recommend what are the best possible areas of excellence that can be brought in, right? And the opportunities for improvements. And it's not just around the product, but again we try to build upon that. And just to go with, like we have a we are building a very good AI driven tool that is TAP, that is a test automation partner. It's a solution to create a test automation scripts out of the, let's say we have a user story or some manual test cases to go with. So that is fed as an input to the tool. So what it does, it generates a robust automation testing scripts which covers end-to-end testing of an application. We have achieved around 80% coverage there. So there is just like 15 to 20% of human intervention required. So that is again a great area wherein we are providing a test automation solution there. So it's just not about user story or manual test cases. Let's say we have a video recording, or let's say we can dive into the code coverage as well to generate the automation test scripts. So there's just a brief of a tab what can it does. So it's a great tool. We are developing it, and it's we can collaborate to achieve greater success there. Moving on to the next thing, just not functional testing. We are also very keen on performing the non-functional testing, which includes performance, stress, load testing, security testing to go with it. So like we have a lot of aspects there as well. So it's just not functional to go with. And we have also a very experienced in ETL testing. We are partnership with Query Surge. So therein we play with the data accuracy, consistency, providing the generation of extraction, transformation, and loading processes across data sources. Uh, it's just not about web application. We also test a wide range of mobile apps and uh, mobile cross browsers testing there. So therein we use not only the manual thing, we also uh, process, like you can say, automated solution within that using let's say APM or Selendroid. So therein, so we are very active in not just web but the mobile aspects of the QA activity there. So moving on to the other services, we also deal with extensive API testing using some of the premier tools like Rest Assured or Postman to go with. We not only verify it manually, but we also include the test automation part in the API as well. So to speak on security testing, we have used a couple of tools like Burp Suite or Kali Linux. So therein also we have done some extensive coverage there. And again, we are also developing a QA Ops tool, which basically focuses on integrating DevOps with QA services, thus streamlining the process of product releases and optimizing the SDLC cycle there. So briefly, I've covered in whatever aspects we have in the organization, and I guess you are aware of these things, right? So to go with, we have two very good tools that we are developing and we very shortly releasing to the markets. So next in, I'll talk of Virtuoso QA. Like it's AI driven. It's one of the most advanced tool to go with. It uses natural programming language to make things easier on that side, and it's a quite a good tool to dive into, right? So if I talk of the key features, right, so it has a great, like if I talk of live authoring, so therein like what it suggests, like it allows the user to have a real-time feedback and validation of each test step that he creates on a headless browser. Like it has its own Chrome browser that it works on, and therein we what it does, like this it provides a real-time feedback, as I said earlier, without the debugging of tests required so often. Like here the user can create tests faster than ever by watching a bot validating each step. So it's quite interesting to go with this tool. It has a headless browser, and it's pure focus on like end-to-end testing of the web application, like with the mission to faster delivery of the project, right? And the other bright thing what I see of this tool is a self-healing technology. So what it does exactly is here, like let's say we have created a few like user journeys within those projects, and let's say there's a change in the web pages. So it automatically deals with the changes of the elements within the pages. So we don't have to go back and forth and it reduces the maintenance of the scripts. That's a quite interesting feature of this tool. And there's a lot of AI powered extensions and test data generations there. So herein, again, it can collaborate with the different apps like GitHub and all the prominent apps in the industry that you can integrate with. And like it just not does the functional thing, it also like takes care of API automation uh, very fluently there. If I talk of other features, obviously it allows the cross-browser, multi-devices, multiple OS testing. We can execute the same over and over at various configuration devices to go with. So it's a great feature, great add-on to the tool. And it's very easy to for any let's say any guy who tries to dive in this tool. It has a very zero setup, you can say. With minimum configuration, we can straight away create like goals, user journeys, and test steps there. Like so it's a very good tool. We'll come to know a lot in the upcoming session, right? So, and then if I talk of other features, like it has a very intelligent object identification, wherein the bot automatically identifies the page elements and goes on to suggest the users when the steps are created, right? So then there is a lot of features good there within the tool. And everybody should try it out to go with, right? And it has a very good capability on the weights as well. It has, like, we don't have to explicitly or implicitly call. It has a great weight functionality to go with the other features as well. Okay, so I move on to there are capabilities. So we can integrate with a lot of apps, and can enhance the test coverage and the end-to-end life interactive, we can say, wherein interface wherein we can drag and drop things. We can identify elements very quickly. There it auto suggests the end user, and it's like, you can say, it's a seamless thing wherein the user can author test cases very easily, right? And it has a lot of pre-built templates and components that can be readily customized to speed up the development and testing processes. Apart from this, there are a lot of features, like we have execution planner, wherein we can set things that to be executed maybe on hourly or a daily or weekly basis. So there are lots of features. If I talk of, like, it will take most of the time, but then it's a great tool driven by AI thing, and uh, it has a lot of collaboration to go with. So this is all about Virtuoso QA. So if I talk of the QA and test automation experiences that we dealt with over the years, I'll share some of the experiences we've got in the organization. So if I talk of a few experiences, like, we dealt with a lot of varied different sectors, wherein the challenge was different every time. But then with our test automation solution, we uh, try to rectify or try to provide an effective solution to those challenges, right? So in one of our clients, so we not only we just automated test solutions there, but it was very like at a minimum level, like we achieved in a very shortest time, you can say. So we used Selenium Java, as well as in some projects we use Selenium Python as well to go with the life cycle. So we use Jenkins and JMeter to perform some of the activity there, QA activity. In the other client, if I talk of, so it was is a leading cloud-based digital lending platform. They had certain challenges with performance testing. So not only we just automated their things, if I talk of key features there, but then alongside with we performed stress load using few of the tools like Locust, K6, or JMeter, to name a few. So we leveraged the automation quite excellently there. If I talk of a few other journeys, uh, again, we integrated API testing services in one of our clients. So there were a lot of APIs at their end. So we not only we integrated those APIs in our scope, but then again we made sure that those things are automated, and we provided a quick knowledge transfer to the client as well, so that in future that can be taken care of. So the quality of the product is of utmost priority, and again, it's the customers should be satisfied, right? So and in the other engagement, we used this AI powered driven tool, which not only saved time, but also cost of resources there. Like we provided end-to-end coverage there as well. So these are some of the test automation experiences I'm going to share. But apart from that, we have delivered a number of projects successfully across the regions, if I talk of. So 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 this is it from my side. For now, I like to transition over to James, who would be co-speaker, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Avinash. And that was really a really insightful presentation. And we know that we've obviously been working with you, WalkingTree, as a partner. So it's always great to see and highlight the work and the capabilities that you're providing. We do appreciate the partnership that we have. So let me share my screen here. See if I can get the right one. Okay. And I will take over. So what I want to do is I want to provide a few further insights into Virtuoso, but then actually I want to show you the platform. And as we go through, obviously people probably have questions. Please do post those in the questions section. We will allow time at the end, but also if we don't happen to get to any, we'll be able to answer them by sending out some notes after the session. So Virtuoso's AI test automation platform. So we are an AI-powered natural language test automation platform. And I will be talking explicitly around what we mean, what are we doing when we really say we're AI-powered, and how we're using that to speed testing, particularly to enable non-engineers to create self-maintaining automation in the cloud. For us, in terms of primarily what we're used for, it is for automating UI and integration testing for browser-based applications, whether sort of more front-end portals or systems used in back office processes like CRM, ERP, and so on. And again, we're natural language based, which you'll see in just a moment. So it is low code, and I'll talk about how you can actually extend the platform yourself. It's a bit like robotic automation, but it has AI, machine learning, and self-healing at its core to make it easy automation, but powerful still. So what it enables is low-code creation of functional UI testing. And where it's particularly useful is where you need to test workflows that go across whether a single browser-based application, for instance, different modules of a CRM or ERP, but also where you're testing across multiple browser-based applications. So maybe CRM into an ERP system. So more end-to-end data-driven testing. I'll talk to you about composable automation, by the way you can create reusable segments. So an easy one example, there is login steps, for example. You don't have to write them every time. You can have a reusable segment. You can incorporate API tests into your testing, less for API testing per se, but more for things like data management and validations. We're using AI, particularly where we're talking about self-healing. And I'll leave it for a second in terms of what we mean by self-healing. But if you think about if you have any issues with maintenance burden in your tests because of dynamic changes, then This is going to speak very nicely to that. And just to be very clear, we are a full end-to-end testing suite. So it's not just a scripting tool, it's a test automation platform for authoring, executing, reporting, and maintaining your tests. So it's a standalone platform. So in terms of AI, I just want to step through a few of the key areas, but I will delve into this in a demo. So number one is the way that we identify elements. What you'll see is you use natural language commands where you do not have to create keywords or page object models or look for selectors. I could just, let's say, if there's a login button, I could say, click on login, and our AI will inspect the DOM to discover the element. And that's even if there are multiples of the same element on the page. And I'll talk about how we do that. We're using AI for self-healing, for dynamic changes. And so this is more for example, you have an existing element, but maybe every time the page loads or on every release, the database assigns new IDs, or it could be the XPath changes or class names are updated. So instead of that causing tests to fail, we're using AI to re-identify and self-heal elements within the test. And I'll show you how that works. We have a low-code part of the platform, which is called extensions. You can create your own natural language. And you do this by driving this with JavaScript. But for those, if you have, let's say, a non-engineer or a person who doesn't know JavaScript, we have AI code generators to be able to put in what you want the function to do, and it generates the JavaScript for you. This is a very powerful capability to extend the platform, even if you don't know JavaScript. We have an AI system for data generation. So if you want to create some generic data sets, you can create those using AI, map those into your test without having to first create them. I will be talking a lot about what we do with the test data in the platform at this. And we also have the ability for AI to summarize what the test is doing. So particularly in an end-to-end test, rather than having someone having to look across and figure out what the test does, we have AI to generate a summary that tells people very quickly exactly what the test is covering. It's actually very useful, particularly where people have large suites of tests, so they can very quickly understand what journeys they have and what they are covering. So that's really as much as I want to talk, because really the powerful thing is to show people the platform. And again, I will, when I do show this, you will probably have lots of questions. So please do make sure that you pop those into the chat or into the questions section of the webinar. We will allow time at the end to be able to cover off. I will say as well, though, we do have really great documentation. We've got lots of YouTube videos. And of course, you can talk to either WalkingTree or ourselves, where we'll be happy if there's something that sparks your imagination here. Of course, happy to have a further conversation. So number one, this is actually, this is Virtuoso that I'm showing on the screen. So in terms of sort of things like just straightforward things, in terms of how do I get started? How do I get set up? We're a SaaS application. We're run in the browser. You don't have to install this. There are no real dependencies. You just obviously, only thing we are, of course, a commercial platform, but apart from getting signed up with us, you can get started straight away. And then you can start testing browser-based applications. Now, just one note, there is only one thing to point out there. Of course, we are in the public cloud. We have various hosting sites in AWS. And of course, most applications in development are behind a firewall. So you can run either what we call a bridge application, like a reverse VPN, or we have things like fixed IP. So you can still test private browser applications. And just note as well, we're SOC 2 Type 2 certified for anybody who's got any nervousness around security. But again, then really what we are. So I've jumped into actually the test level. We call that a journey. So our tests are journeys because what you generate are less sort of just, if you like, feature-based tests and more end-to-end workflows. So for example, here I've got a dummy insurance application. And what this test does is it goes across logging in, opens the insurance app, creates a customer, then uses that customer to create a policy. And then finally, with that policy, it's going to download a PDF to check, in this case, that the insurance policy details are shown on the screen. Now that's within a single application, but you can actually have multiple tabs open. So this could actually be an end-to-end journey across multiple applications. So it might be create my customer in the CRM, then go to my policy management or whatever my browser application is. We're not just focused on insurance, so that I can create those end-to-end workflows. Now, again, if you caught in the introduction, we're a natural language-based tool. And what that means is that instead of having, again, to write in code or to go and pick selectors or build page object models, literally in my test, if I want to log in and there's a login button, I could write click on, that's our natural language syntax. And if the button says login, then I can just write what it says on the screen. And I'll show you that working in just a second, as well as some of the, actually we've got some beta AI, generative AI features that I'll give you a bit of a sneak preview to. We have quite extensive natural language. You know, it is predefined. So you have things like the click, the write, the mouse actions, but also through to things like, of course, your assertions. So whether it's validating the presence of something on the screen or assertions to actually check that a given state of an element meets an expected value, for example. So this is actually about not just being able to perform functional actions, but being able to work and perform assertions, but also to be able to factor in data to your tests. Because the idea here is you don't just create a single test with one data scenario. You're actually trying to create reusable tests. So for example, you'll see here, I haven't put the URL or the username or password. I haven't put environment details. What I can do is set up environments. So I could say, create my, in this case, my stage and my dev environment with my parameters. And then actually I can run the same test against different environments. So I could specify that I want to run this test and I'm going to run it today against my dev or my stage environment. Now I'll talk to how things like our self-healing enables that, because of course element selectors change across environments. But the point here is I can have one test to run against different environments, but also when it comes to putting data in the test, instead of putting the explicit data values, I can put in variables and then I can choose where those come from. So for example, I could have test data sets. So I could create test data tables. In this case, I've got 5 rows of data with customers and policies. So basically I can have parameterized data sets that enable me to run the same test with different data scenarios. Even within that, for example, if I came in and, for example, in one scenario, let's say for scenario 3, when it gets to the producer field, I don't need to fill that in. That's absolutely fine, because what I can do in my test, not only can I manage data, but I can also put in conditional statements. So I could say, for example, when I get to, it could be the insurance type, that only is needed if the producer is not empty, for example. So I can actually have it where even if the test has differences between the different data scenarios, that's still absolutely fine. I can factor those in using conditional statements. So just as I mentioned, I want to give you a flavor though of actually what the experience is like when you create your test, because this isn't a recorder, it's not code-based, it is authoring tests in natural language, a bit like writing tests, manual tests, if you like. And the experience of that is that when you first run your test, you'll put in obviously the first step, which is to navigate to the URL. You get a live rendering of the browser. And then what I could do is put my login steps. And I could say, I'm going to wait for the V insurance, just because I saw the page took a few seconds to load. That puts in a dynamic wait, either wait 20 seconds or for V insurance to appear. And then again, without defining any sort of element, without putting keywords, without looking for selectors, I could then start writing. So I could put in write James B at virtuoso.qa. I look at the screen and it says username. And when I press enter, we have a live bot, which is locating that element on the screen. It writes it. I see it go green. I've got working automation. I could go in and say, I'm going to write my password and put that into the password field. I could then say, I want to click on this checkbox. So I could look for remember me. And then I could say, click on the left checkbox, for example. So again, I haven't had to pre-build anything to do this. I can start writing it straight away. I even have access into the dev tools. So I could come in and say, if I've got a logo here, for example, and it doesn't have a label, I could look and let's say take a class name, and then I could say click and use the class name to be able to interact. What we're then doing, if I just click on I'm done here, what we are doing, what the platform is doing rather, it is capturing all the available selectors for each of those elements, and it's doing that dynamically. So whether XPath or IDs or classes, JS paths for shadow DOMs, we also capture things like iframes, nested iframes, pretty much anything you would expect to be able to perform. We're building that model, although it doesn't mean that that's a fixed model. That's more the initial picture. But when I show you when the test runs, if that changes, that's where the AI self-healing kicks in as well. It's more for us to just build that initial model so that we have something to work from. What I could also do here is say straight away, this login sequence, and I'm just going to take out that last step, this login sequence is a reusable sequence effectively. Those steps are going to be the same, no matter which test I put it into. And so then what I could do is I could choose, and I'm just going to give this a new, I'm going to call this version 5, just so I keep it separate. What I could do is say, I want to reuse that. So I can now drop that into what we call a checkpoint library. And now what I've got, if I come in and say, well, actually, if I delete out that sequence, I've come in now, I'm building a new test. I'm at the login screen, and I know I've already built the login steps. I can look in the library and I can see I've got my login 5 sequence. So I could just add those in. So now rather than me having to rebuild that because it's a common sequence, I can actually rebuild from the reusable steps. You know, I could add in and say, when I log in, I know I will come and I've got to open the insurance app. Then when I've done that, I'm going to add a new customer. And basically I can start creating this sequence. If I wanted to modify that, I could either say, if that's going to change all the tests, I could unlock it and make changes, and those will propagate all the tests that use that. Or I could detach this. So I could say, I want to use that as a template, but now I'm going to make changes, but only for this test. Again, the idea here is to create really reusable automation. So I could come in and build it out so I can start building my test packs really quickly. And to that end, we call our test packs goals. And actually, if I step back one level, you have an organization in Virtuoso, you can create different projects, you can give roles-based access and control who sees this and for what purpose. You can create the different goals. So again, those are like test packs. You might align that to a business workflow or different modules of an application. And then within that, of course, you have your journeys, your tests, which you can put the summaries on, you can put tags. So that now what I can do, I can quickly build these. And again, in terms of who that is building these, we have BAs doing this, product owners, functional testers, through to engineers. Those people now can all work on this, and then they can start saying, now I've built my test packs out, I want to plan these, I want to orchestrate them. So now you can build execution plans. You can then, in those plans, you can decide when you want to schedule this. You can also hook this into CI/CD and run from pipelines. We run on a headless Chrome browser, but you can configure a device hive using Browser Stack or Lambda test to do cross-browser testing. You can define environments you want to run, but then you can start piecing together whether it's by your tags, for instance, all tests with regression on it, or specific journeys, specific tests. You can add those in, choose whether to data drive them, and then basically orchestrate this and start running your test packs. When they do run, so we are effectively your grid. So what you'll see is within the project activity, they run on our infrastructure, so our AWS. And when they're running through, we're then giving fully versioned test reports, which give you pass-fail responses, the environments it was run on, the devices. You get readable test steps with screenshots captured automatically. But also here, we're doing things like we're capturing network requests and console logs. So from a reporting perspective, you can firstly understand what's happening in the test, but then if there are failures, you could potentially pass this, whether it's a report back in the pipeline or whether it's passing to an engineer. They could start debugging, particularly if this actually happened to be, let's say, something on the network or the server, which is causing an error. So it's really easy to get version test results. You can, and again, you can run this whether it's data driven or on different environments. And what also happens here is I've mentioned quite a few times our self-healing. So the self-healing is where we are basically re-identifying where there have been changes in the application occurring. And instead of the test failing because of, let's say, XPath or IDs have updated, and that was what your automation was built upon, in our test, as the test is running, where you see all these little sticking plasters or band-aids for those of you in the US, these are all what we call self-healing points. And effectively, what's happening is AI is automatically re-identifying where there have been changes in an element. And in this case, you can see we've got the XPath, the ID, the class name have all changed. We automatically heal that. And that works very successfully. You know, our customers now, we're over 150 customers working in all manner of different industries and different size of customers, but they are able to run their tests while not being burdened by maintenance, but also seeing that this accurately heals their tests for these sorts of dynamic changes. Just quickly note what it won't do at this stage. It won't pick up if you've added in a new feature. So it's not going to automatically write your test for you, but it is healing for existing elements. It's automatically healing those. And that's a massive reduction in maintenance burden, which typically people struggle with a lot. Some other things that we cover off are, we've talked about functional testing, but you can also build in API calls. So you can see here, this is actually a Salesforce test, which we're running. And what we're doing is logging into Salesforce. And again, this could also be in Dynamics. It could be in another browser application, anything that's using REST APIs and has endpoints. You can effectively, here we're doing a token call to get a Salesforce token. We're then using that call sequentially to then pass into another API to create an account using test data, environment data, and the token. We're asserting on the API response. And then we're creating the contact via an API as well. But then what I could do is always make sure I'm storing things like the record ID, in this case, in the API response. And now what I could do is jump into the UI, and it could be to say, create a contact via the API calls really quickly, and then go into the UI, load up that record ID, and transition the status of that contact. So that combination of functional UI plus APIs, particularly for data management, is really powerful for creating speedy testing, especially where, you know, a lot of testing is actually setting data up. And to do that in the UI sometimes may not be the most efficient approach. The other thing I really want to give you a sneak preview on is things we're now starting to do. So I've already showed you quite a lot in terms of what we're already doing with AI in the platform. But what I now want to show you is sort of we're starting to use more generative AI to be able to assist when you're authoring tests. So in this test, it's actually going to run through, this is going to show you Dynamics 365. It's another example of how literally, if you have a browser-based application, so if it's in a browser and it has a DOM structure, you can use Virtuoso for testing within that. You'll also see there, for those of you who caught it, we're able to do things like use OTP codes to be able to go through 2FA, for example. But now we're logged into Dynamics. What we're starting to do is pass in and say, we're calling this AI authoring. I could come across and select a region on the screen, and instead of using our natural language syntax, I could say create an account, click account, and then create an account, for example. And what this does is now it's passing through to actually OpenAI with large language models to pass through that natural language command. And as you see, it's gone through and written the test steps for me. So instead of me having to learn the syntax, it's created those steps. It's now running through. It's going to open up that page and it's going to click to create a new account. Where we think this is particularly going to be useful is, you know, partly it's going to help teach people the syntax to be able to use, which is already straightforward, but it gives you good examples. But also then in form-based applications, I could say, fill in the account information rather than me having to go and write each of the individual test steps. So where you've got something which potentially is generating a large amount of steps, like form-based applications, this is really useful for me to be able to go and do that. Now, we fully expect that this, you know, there are things like, for example, it may not know the data to put into the test. So we're fully expecting that this is going to be semi-autonomous to be able to help generate test steps but I might then want to go back and refactor to say, actually, I want to pick a different account, so Virtuoso QA. I could put in a pause point and then rerun that sequence it generated for me. So basically refactoring to be able to, let's say, put in test data, for example. Just a great example of how we're continuing to factor in further developments with AI into the platform, bearing in mind, it's already really straightforward through the natural language approach to be able to generate your end-to-end tests using, again, could be engineers or non-engineers alike, to quickly build out those regression packs that have a high degree of stability because of the self-healing to really give you that speed, efficiency, and scalability in an easy-to-use platform. And then just very quickly, I want to highlight that we call this low code because you can actually generate your own, what we call extensions. So the ability to create your own natural language commands. So for example, if I want to create something simple like today's date, then we've got an AI generator that could say, create today's date in day, month, year format. So what I'm doing is able to create my own natural language command and then generate JavaScript, or if you know JavaScript, you can write that so that basically I can customize the platform to run my own functions. And as you can see there, I don't even need to know JavaScript to be able to do that. It's really cool what the AI generator does there. Otherwise, yeah, just to note, we do have a lot of, for example, YouTube videos. So for those of you who want to go across, we can put the link to our YouTube channel in, but also we've got really extensive documentation. For example, if you want to look up the natural language, it's really rich in terms of how this can be used. And of course, via our website, virtuoso.qa, you can, of course, get in touch, even go through and, of course, book a demo with us if you like. But from my side, that really hopefully has given some insights into the Virtuoso solution that we're powering or working with WalkingTree in partnership with to power engagement, particularly on end-to-end functional UI testing. And together, we would be glad to really explore opportunities together, part of the WalkingTree and Virtuoso.qa partnership, to see how that could work for you. Otherwise, I think, Anisha, I'll hand back to yourself. I'm sure we've got lots of questions that we can run through.
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of questions. All right, let's see what we have. So first off, Abhishek Sinha is asking what all database or data warehouse it supports, basically.
Yeah, so for databases, where I showed API calls, we don't connect directly to databases simply because we're in the public cloud, but typically you make an API call that passes your query, run it through a binary, so a small database connector. We have one that supports common SQL databases like Postgres and 4 or 5 others, which we can pass the details to. But in principle, all that binary is doing is converting the command into the format that the database needs. So in actual fact, some of our customers really quickly spin up their own binaries if we don't support it, but it's effectively just an endpoint with a library to convert the query. So otherwise, yeah, it's really for the purpose of validating data, API call that passes a query through a binary to connect to the database.
He's also asking whether this covers database testing or backend testing.
So database testing, yes, more from a data perspective. So obviously, if it's a back-end sort of more client-based application, we only support things in the browser. But definitely, so long as you can make an API call and whether pass a query or an API call that converts to a query for the purpose of validating data, then the answer is yes, it will support doing that.
Okay, we have another question from Chandrasekhar. He's asking, do we support REST API test as well as part of API tests?
Yeah, so for us, again, we're not really strictly API testing, but absolutely you can support making REST API calls. We have an API manager where you can build in your calls, parameterize them, and then run them as part of your tests. So the answer is yes, you can support making REST calls, more for data management, but you can, of course, do things like assert on the responses you get from the API calls. But again, it's not strictly API testing, it's more incorporating APIs, and yes, that is REST APIs.
Okay. And we have another question from Mohan Krishna, who is asking, will this tool act as a separate entity for automation? And do we have any feasibility to implement shift left testing?
You can, and actually I didn't show this, but because we're natural language based and because we're not dependent upon element selectors to write your test, you actually can write tests prior to development occurring, whether it's from Gherkin, syntax, BDD, whether it's from looking at wireframes or designs. You can effectively start writing your test. You wouldn't run it, of course, because the application is not ready, but you can have it ready to run. And as long as the developers in principle are following the approach of the designs and the requirements, then yes, we actually have a customer in the automotive space who wrote their entire test suite before they did any development, ran it with an 80% success rate, and just had to make adjustments because the developers had made some changes there. So the answer is absolutely 100%. You can and should consider how you incorporate shift left into this.
Okay, and we have another question from Doug, who's asking if this is open sourced.
It is not open source. We are a commercial platform. So there is a consideration there. And like with any, with putting a good salesperson's hat on, it does come down to fundamentally for the investment in the platform. Then of course you've got to quantify the return on that, which is typically in the order of being faster, more scalable, and potentially changing the mix of the team and freeing up more QEs and QAs to focus on more advanced tasks. So it is a commercial platform.
Okay. Andres here says that in their team, they are developing medical diagnostic devices, and it seems that this tool suite is not exactly relevant for medical devices, but he says thank you anyways for enhancing his horizon.
Awesome. Thanks, Andre.
Okay. And okay, we have another one from Mohan Krishna. He says, how Virtuoso is different from other low-code tools?
Yeah. So what we typically find, I mean, the other modes of low codes will, I mean, probably Recorder is one of the most prevalent. You do get sort of some model-based testing. So generally what we find is on the AI perspective. So it's from firstly the identification of elements, but the ability to write tests that are actually that. They're not just recording actions. You're actually putting in your functional actions together with your data steps, your assertions, your testing validations. That's number one. But I would say the bigger difference really comes from the ability to run across different browser-based applications, and then the self-healing for us. We haven't come across any other provider, and we see this from the customers we've worked across to have validated us compared to other platforms as well as coded solutions, particularly the self-healing aspect of this. And feedback we've had is this actually is using AI, whereas others probably are not so much. It's more logic driven. That we find is some of the key things. So you're actually getting more longer term benefit in terms of things like the particularly the reduction in your maintenance and the more stable tests that you can run for longer.
Okay. We have questions from Vishal. He says, can this tool be deployed and used on premises?
It cannot, no. We are a cloud platform, so we're a SaaS platform. And so we do understand for some organizations that probably precludes using us, but we are a cloud-first application, and we're typically then we find the best fit is with those organizations who've got a cloud and digital-first approach, because no, we don't support on-prem.
Okay, and he's also asking if there's any limit of data generation, as they would require to test millions of rows of data.
For us, it depends. So it would be interesting to understand the use case there. It might be sort of more data lakes. I would say that may not be the primary fit, but Vishal would be happy to have a very short conversation just to validate that. And we'll be very open in terms, because there are things we don't do, there are things we do, and we can validate that pretty quickly.
Okay. And he's also asking if we could show him an AI authoring example.
Yeah, I think looking at the timestamp of that, I think we showed it just after you asked. So that was where we're, firstly, the AI, so it kind of may not look like it, but where you're writing, let's say, click on login and it's locating the element, firstly, that's leveraging AI, but where we showed the generation of test steps, so highlighting the region of the screen with a more natural language command like create and count in dynamics, hopefully you saw there. But again, we do have lots of videos that we can share across after this if you didn't quite capture that.
Okay. Looks like Vishal has a lot of questions. He has posted another one. He's asking, can please also cover the reporting capabilities in more details?
Yeah, what I'll do is, and perhaps Vishal, if it's okay, we might reach out separately, given you've got quite a few questions, and given we've only got a few minutes. Again, we do have documented details and videos, but again, if there's real interest to look further, even if it's just to validate this, we'd be happy to sort of drill in. I would expect people might sort of have 5 or 6 things they want to see in particular. Again, we'd be happy to do a separate session, or we can just send out details. It's all fully documented on the videos, just for interest of time. But we do have reporting, of course.
Okay. So next one is anonymous, and this user is asking if it also verifies the user experience as well, animations, colors, and what if the page isn't distorted?
To a degree, I would say this is slightly secondary for us. So the first would be the sort of more validation of the business workflows or the workflows across the application. You can do things like store element details and validate on the attributes of those. We do have some form of visual regression, but it's not going to go through and I sort of tell you that your page doesn't look how it should. So I think the answer there is to an extent, but I would say if that's your primary use case, then we may not be the best fit there. Again, if you want to reach out to us and just explain that a bit further, if you just want to make sure, happy to take that offline.
We have the next one from Sarita, and she's asking, does it work with Workday?
It does. It does work. We have customers already testing on Workday. Obviously, there are lots of different modules and products within the Workday suite, but the answer is yes, it does work with Workday.
Abhishek has another question. He says, can we have this in a private cloud?
That it's not undoable, but typically we reserve that for where we're in large deployments. Obviously, there's a support consideration there, so it's not a definite no. But in practicalities, for most of our clients, it's no. It's more where we have very large projects where sort of government or really sort of large industry projects. So it's possible, but in most cases, probably not.
The next question is from Alok, and he's asking for price.
Yeah, so the pricing, as you can imagine, I will say one thing: we're not a $10 license. We're also not going to be probably millions of dollars to most people. The answer is that it depends really. We're predominantly a consumption-based platform, so it's either usage of capacity or usage of consumption. So the point is, it really depends. But for pretty much everyone who uses this, they are able to justify the investment within this. So I would say it's not really an answer for you, except that, yeah, we need to understand a bit more detail there.
Okay, so next set of questions we have from one particular user. We don't have a name, but we have the name of his mobile device apparently. He's asking, how do we access the test report, and can he rerun the individual test case?
Yes, as you may have seen, we're a browser-based application, so we are a platform. So the answer is you log into the platform. You can give read-only logins. You can give, if you have clients or different departments, you can give them access. So basically, it's SaaS-based reporting, and the second part is yes, of course you can rerun. Yeah, the whole point of this is to have rerunnable, reusable tests, which whether it's scheduled via CI/CD or you manually rerunning it, the answer is yes.
This person is also interested in knowing that if he can export his existing test cases to this.
Not really, not just at the moment, simply because, as I'm sure you all know, in the world of test automation, there's really no standardization. So there's no easy way to automatically convert that. We do have strategies. So we have, whether it's working with partners like WalkingTree or ourselves, we're able between us to offer approaches to be able to migrate those test cases That said, this year we are starting to look at how we use OpenAI and large language models to actually convert tests. We're able to start doing some neat things with Selenium tests to transfer them in. But strictly speaking, no, not just at this stage.
Okay, and he's also asking what about the data security as it is SaaS and cloud platform.
Yep. So we're SOC 2 Type 2 certified. So you can imagine all the assurances there we have around things like if you're using our bridge, basically VPN, all data is secured in transit and rest, and you'd expect in terms of all the controls from a SOC 2 Type 2 compliance basis. Basically, if you have an InfoSec questionnaire, we'll be able to answer it pretty much satisfactorily. I would say that though we are not a data processor, we are a testing platform. You don't put personal or private data into this, so it's used for test data in test systems only.
Okay, and this person is also interested in knowing that whether you have a plan to come up with a mobile application-based test framework.
Possibly. Not. We don't have it at this stage, and we don't have an immediate answer as to when. But that's always something that's asked. We have taken a sort of browser-first approach simply because, honestly, it's a large enough market for us. But we do understand that that's an important aspect. So it's something we do continually review, and the answer is possibly, but just I can't say yes at this stage.
Okay. So next question we have from Marion, and she's asking what is the price? But if there's time, maybe we can consider this question. She wants to know, basically she says that she can guess it from the site, but she's still interested.
Yeah, that's fine. And Marion, probably reach out to us. We're not gonna make you jump through massive hoops to get a price, but we just need a few more details to understand what sort of scale are you talking about, so we can obviously give you an associated price for it. So I would suggest just reach out to us.
Okay, so next question we have from Pawan, and he's asking if we can read market research reports, PDFs, and documents and answer to user asked questions.
If you're meaning in Virtuoso, then yes, there are various assets we have about Virtuoso. If you're talking in testing, so in your test, can you read PDFs and docs? The answer is yep. You can load a PDF on the screen and then validate details in it, or convert docs, Excels or Word into things like JSON and then validate those. But again, I think you're asking more from about us, which is, there's plenty of collateral about us, whether it's on things like G2 or Gartner and so on.
Okay, and he's also asking if we can integrate this application in our website.
Yeah, so if you think what this is doing, this is using bots, so it doesn't integrate into an application. It's a standalone application where basically you're emulating a user opening up a browser window and targeting a site. So you don't need to integrate it into your application under test. If you're meaning into your own tooling structures, then this is a standalone tool. We are an open API and do have integrations, but otherwise we run standalone. So it's not going to integrate into, let's say, existing frameworks.
Okay, next we have from Vishal, and he's asking, can we import manual test cases from Jira where there are step-by-step instructions?
So we don't have Zephyr, but we have the ability to integrate with X-Ray, but that's more for test results. So again, what we do have, and this isn't really a product feature, it's more people experimenting now with OpenAI to be able to put in the manual test into things like OpenAI and ask it to convert it into a Virtuoso test or into BDD format. Then you put the BDD into Virtuoso. So again, I'm not going to say that's a product feature per se, but it's more a direction we have. So the answer you're looking for is no, but it's what I expect to be coming this year, to be able to automatically convert manual tests into usable tests in Virtuoso.
Okay. So next up we have from Kashif, and she's asking what would be the storage assigned to each user or each company?
So we have standards, but as ever, if you need more, it's a cloud-based platform. So quite simply, we have data retention limits and data retention timeframes, but pretty much if you need it to be longer, then that can be done so. And we do have details on our website. If you search platform limits, then those are in there, but yeah.
Okay. Aniket is asking, what is the maturity of this tool?
Yeah, so we actually came about in 2017. So we've been a company now for about 7 years. We didn't come to market until about 2020, but we've now been in the market for 4 years. And we now work more and more with very large enterprise and partners such as WalkingTree on large enterprise products. So we are an enterprise-ready, mature platform. We're obviously have a very good backing as a company. And from a maturity perspective, this is basically if you have a large digital transformation enterprise end-to-end testing need, we are going to fit the bill there. But equally, if you need to test smaller applications, it will work there. It's a very mature application, and you can come and talk to us and we can discuss how you can validate that.
Okay, Sarita wants to know, can we integrate with Azure DevOps?
Yeah, so we're an open API, so most people integrate us with CI/CD, whether Azure DevOps, Jenkins, or others. Effectively, we have either example bash scripts you can run as part of the pipeline or robot frameworks, so you can configure to be able to trigger tests running from the pipeline and get back test pass-fail responses, but also things like JUnit to go into the test plan section. So yeah, you can do that.
Okay, and another question from Kashif. When the test case fails due to any change in the code or expected result, then the script will be re-recorded or AI will take over?
So it depends really then if the test should fail, for instance, because there's an application error or because it gives a result that is different from the expected result. The answer there is you get a very clear test report to tell you where the test step has failed. There are the ability to automatically rerun the test. If you're saying that actually it's failing or your tests today are failing because the code has changed, but it could be, let's say the element is the same, but the structure's changed, or you're maybe clicking on a record ID and that ID changes, but you want the test to continue. That's where AI takes over and automatically self-heals if you're expecting the test to continue running. So, it's probably a little bit to explore a little bit further into the exact use case there, but the idea is, where there are changes that actually don't change the test, the application itself, but it's more, let's say, code level changes or data level changes, then that's where AI and self-healing definitely takes over.
Okay.
And I'll just see the one there from Marianne as well. So on price, Marianne, definitely reach out to us. We'll give you some pricing. It is something we do on a case-by-case basis, just because we configure our prices based on different variables. So I want to be quite clear on that. Yeah. But look, an entry-level price for this, we can say, is going to be around a sort of £15,000 starting point, just to give you an idea, up to, of course, enterprise level pricing. So again, if we realize that for some people, they may be looking just for a lower cost tool, but that's sort of our typical sort of entry points.
Okay. So looks like we are done with all of the questions as of now. And we are at the end of our session today, and I would really thank you, both our speakers, for delivering such an insightful session. And thank you to all the participants who joined us today. And I would like to request you all, please mark your calendars for next week, because the Virtuoso team will be coming up with a webinar on how generative AI would be the future of test automation. And we have another webinar coming up in the month of March on 22nd, wherein we will be unlocking multimodal brilliance and we will explore enterprise use cases. So thank you very much, everyone, for today. Have a good day ahead.